So welcome back, pilgrims. I'm really excited to bring this conversation to this space. At the moment, we are really reckoning with what's happening all across the world, all of the social issues, political, environmental. It does feel like there's a deep yearning for something that's ancestral, something that's traditional, something that can hold us all. So today we're going to talk about the archaic revival or the folk revival, because it does feel like at this moment we're in it. But Jeremy also said we're in our 12th, so I guess we're in an iteration of it. Yeah. And today I'll be joined by two really amazing folk artists, Jen, who is a brilliant ballad collector and singer, and Jeremy, who's a visual artist, but also, I guess, performance artist as well. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves? Because your work is so far-reaching.
You go first.
My name is Jennifer Reid. I sing Industrial Revolution work song in the Lancashire dialect. 01706 Rochdale forever. And also Manchester Broadside ballads, so I straddle the oral and print tradition around about. My favourite time period is like 1760, get a bit of French Revolution in there, cut King's head off a while. And then all the way down to around about 1890 when music hall kicks off and it gets a bit cheesy.
Yes.
My name's Jeremy Deller. I'm much less animated and interesting than Jen. But I did meet Jen at the age of 19 in Chetham's Library, didn't I?
Only a year ago.
Yes. And we've worked together on many things. I'm a visual artist, which means many things. I'm not just sort of focused on what we might be talking about today, because my work's all over the place. But I hope I can help as best.
No, you can be very helpful. And I'm Daze Aghaji. I'm actually an environmental activist in my daytime, but also a very proud trustee of the British Pilgrimage Trust. So that's what brings me here. So first, I think, let's start with the definitions. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. What would you consider as folk, and how would you describe folk? And I guess, because Jeremy looks slightly uncomfortable, we shall go to Jen first.
Folk. I don't really like folk music, I will say. I'm more of a rap type girl. But folk music, the folk part of it is the people. I think that's very important, and it helps people find their identity. There's nothing better than going to a 12-year-old in Wigan and saying, your accent is your currency, kid, and you need to dine out on that. And they leave restored, and that's the point of it. So folk is about people, I think, really.
I love that.
Yeah, of the people, and also not manufactured or a business proposition, maybe. That's the other thing.
No, I definitely think there's something about folk. We look at it as it's like just the traditions, but it's actually about how the people carve the traditions and make them with each other. And there's that community element that's really important.
And ownership.
Yes.
It's like everybody's, no one owns it.
Yeah, I do love that. So Jeremy, you've kind of touched on the fact that your work is slightly far-reaching. Would you like to go into a bit more depth of, what does Jeremy Deller's artwork look like? And also, Jeremy's actually quite well known, and he won't
not
give
here.
himself, exactly, maybe not here, but he won't give himself the credit of how revolutionary his art has been.
Oh, God, that's such a big sort of bigging me up. I do lots of different things. So I'll talk about three big-ish things. I made a film about dance music in Britain between 85 and 92, looking at it from the sort of political angle, but also how dance music intersected with politics and social history. And the film was made with a group of 16-year-olds in a school. And them looking back at the 80s, and traveller movement, all those things, and trying to make sense of it and talk about it from their perspective. So that's one thing. I made an inflatable version of Stonehenge called Sacrilege, which toured Britain and London, and then the world. And we can talk about that later, because that Stonehenge is the pilgrimage point for tourists in Britain, let's face it. And thirdly, what was the other one? I reenacted a battle from the miners' strike in 2001, the Battle of Orgreave, with 1,000 people, with former miners and members of reenactment societies, as a piece of public performance art, which was definitely about place. And people going to a place again to revisit the place and the history of that place for them personally.
Yes, and it's like, I always think your works are almost like public rituals in themselves, the way that people engage with it, whether it is the bouncy castle or whether it's, the actual enacting their own histories or their, ancestral histories.
I think I'm very interested in human behaviour. So I'm the kind of person who goes to a demo and will stand at the side and watch everyone. I won't really take part. I have to say, I'll be watching and seeing what's happening. And so I'm interested in setting up situations like, for example, sacrilege, the inflatable Stonehenge. How do people react to that around the world? Well, the way they react is the same as everyone else reacts.
Yeah.
They get on and they laugh and they jump about. And that's basically it. And it's very simple. But that's, if you go to Hong Kong, France, UK, wherever in the UK, that is the reaction.
Yeah, I love that because it just reminds you of like folk not just being of place, but of people more generally. And it's something that we can all kind of like find our place within.
Yeah, and being in the same place as people having the same experience.
Yeah.
Maybe an unusual experience, but sharing that.
I love that. And Jen, so your practice is around song. And it's so beautiful. I was very lucky to hear the first rendition of Jen's newest album. So tell us about your practice. What is it like being a song collector who gets to learn about these histories and gets to kind of almost like hold people's histories in such a beautiful way? That's really special.
Being a young woman in the folk scene is an interesting concept to live through. But I've been doing it 16 years now, so I'm starting to get a bit of recognition. They kind of go, oh, you haven't ran away, so great that you stayed. And I just think, yes, can't afford the therapist bill, but never mind. So I think the point of collecting songs is to just, it's not about, like, it's a common treasury for all in it. That's what Winstanley said. So very Wigan pilled today, sorry about that. So, like, when last night I sang at Manchester Central Library and all the Broadside ballads are out. You remember them?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
That's where we met. So, all the ballads were out and I was singing the songs. You don't just get away with enjoying hearing me sing, because that's just like the first rung, you know. That's the entry level. Then you've got to learn something. Then you've got to apply it to your own life. And then you've got to go and act on it outside in Sainsbury's car park when someone's kind of like run over your foot. And you've got to be like, well, maybe we are the same. Maybe this and that. So... yeah, so I was singing last night in Manchester Central Library, the ballads are out, I'm singing them, and then people are walking past them, and then they're reconnecting with a kind of element that they would never do. It's like, I don't sing them, and they're not mine. I always used to say a folk singer, they choose the best 12 songs and cream take the cream off the top and toddle around the world touring that. And I think what's important is it's all the other bits and bats that come out of it. It's all the social history. Like in Victoria Bridge on a Saturday night, it's got some of the best wordplay I've ever heard. So like, whoever may travel on Manchester gravel will see many things to astonish his sight, but sure he must notice wherever his court is, Victoria Bridge on a Saturday night. Such running and rushing, such jostling and pushing, it looked as though Babel had settled through spite. Or Nick to Gord, one or two keys aboard on Victoria Bridge on a Saturday night. And the thing is with Victoria Bridge, it's such an unassuming little bridge that runs down from Manchester Cathedral into Salford. And you don't think much of it, but then the song adds another layer to it. Then you walk in past to get the bus to Salford and you think, oh, that's Victoria Bridge where the Premier Inn is. And then I sing it in Auckland and there's a guy at the back from Salford called Tony, and he is called Tony. And he goes, I sing that song and he goes, me mum, yeah, I know that. Me mum used to work there. Like round the back in the dye works. And I'm thinking, we're in Auckland, Tony. What are you on about this bridge in Salford for? So you don't realise what connects you so hard to like the archival material. I like that when people like a song of mine, I can tell them who wrote it, when they wrote it, where it's stored and who looks after it. So if you need to, I can take you by the hand and like put you in front of it, and then it's on you. You know, it's not about the entertainment aspect. It's about the whole kind of just reconnecting those dots that maybe the individualism of the Thatcher era removed from us.
And mic drop. So Jeremy, your work does also touch upon this kind of like collective memory of like, you know, this country. So why do you think these old forms and ways of being around folk culture are so important in these modern times?
Well, I think they've always have been. If there is a revival, if we're talking about that, maybe there is a revival. I think that's to do with the internet, actually. And that's like people going to... I used to go to these events 20 years ago or more, and 2 or 3 people who had cameras. And I'd imagine if you went now to them, there'd be hundreds and hundreds of cameras, or phones at least. Yeah. So they get proliferated through... technology, cutting-edge technology, if you like, which I find very interesting. So, but I think it's a lot about community, it's a lot about places. People they probably feel a bit deracinated by technology and by what's going on in the world, and it's a way to connect to that, or come back to your village or your town when this is happening, to feel part of it. It's what people need, isn't it, really? So I think it's just a human need to gather together and to celebrate something. Even though a lot of these events, no one really knows what they're there for. They don't know what the derivation of it is, and there's always different stories, which is fine, I think. I think it's good to be open. That's a good thing about folk culture. On the whole, it's quite open. The best ones are open because no one really knows why they're there, really, but they sort of do. And I think a lot of them happened because people were bored and they were drunk and they made up these games and these dangerous things to do in the street through boredom and being against their work almost. So I think people still have that about them. They still want to do that.
Yeah, and I think what I find the most interesting about your work is this kind of like, you take these old forms, but then like you change them. Like, for example, one of the big things that you've done recently was the Art of Triumph in Trafalgar Square, bringing those traditional folk customs into the centre. But it's like, think Morris dancing, but all female-led and dancing to like drum and bass. That was the vibe.
It's Boss Morris. Who I'm sure a lot of you know Boss Morris. They're very famous, aren't they?
How many people know Boss Morris in the room?
Yeah, okay.
A lot less than I
10%.
thought.
You know them, Jen. They're amazing. And we had stones made. I'd made some stones in Dundee, so you could get in a stone, make a stone circle. You inhabited a stone, and they were dancing with them. We had the figure of the sun, and we had all this other kinds of music as well, mixed in pop music, basically mixed in with folk music. It was very pagan and joyful event in the middle of London. Also, when you do something in Trafalgar Square, you have a lot of history there. And it's not a very nice space to do anything, frankly. Yeah. And so we humanised it for an afternoon at least.
Yeah, and there's something about that kind of modern edge. Do you think it is important to take these traditions and not just leave them in the ways that they are now, but bring something else to it?
I think folk culture and folk music has always been very durable, and it's always had that one idea or the song. You've got the lyrics, and I think, but it can it can change, and I think it's actually very tough. Its core, and you can reinterpret it because they're very strong ideas, very strong lyrics. So I think it's good that it changes. Often the most dull folk sort of ritual events you go to are ones that are literally the same every year, and people are doing it in a certain way, and the ritual becomes more like something if you went to church every week and it was the same, and so it doesn't change. It doesn't have modernity to it. That's the fun bit, when there's modernity in it, for me personally.
Yeah. Do you find the same in your work, Jen? Because your songs are all about labour, resistance, and labour in a way that's different to, I guess, the labour that we do now. You know, so do you find that you're interested in playing around with the songs?
Working at Home Bargains in Bury was like working at the coalface. Quote me on that.
Probably more dangerous.
Yeah. It was actually, because I worked on First Isle, and it was when like the big doors, I mean, this is going off piece, sorry, Daze. But the kids used to come after school and they'd like be throwing empty beer bottles down alley, and I'd be going, jumping over him. It was good. Bit of exercise. So, what did you ask me? Modernity in my practice. Yes. It is nice to sing about coal mining and weaving, and I do think it replenishes the context for people that I talk to about how I am essentially, well, we all are, standing on the shoulders of people who had to dedicate 16 hours a day to work and then still found the time. John Trafford Clegg in 1895 came back from weaving in the weaving shed and still found time to write some of the best dialect poetry I've ever heard in my life. And it's one of them where the culture of industry permeates. So in the same way that my nails are the colour of Deliveroo, my culture is kind of like I'm imbibing it by accident. So when you are singing these songs about mining and weaving, they have the rhythms of that, and you'll find the same the world over, like where you have spinning sheds and weaving sheds in Bangladesh. When you're on the top floor and you're spinning, it's really, really hot, and all blokes have got their shirts off. You find that the phrases of the songs, they can't get their breath, so the phrases are a lot shorter. And when you start noticing how the environment affects the music, that's when you can kind of understand what your place is in it. So my thing at the moment is just getting scallies into folklore. I need to get all the scallies between the ages of 13 and 18 into folklore. Folklore is a JD bag. Where you park in the supermarket car park is folklore. That balloon up there touching the roof is folklore. Because all these rhythms that we live by, these are what we need to understand, that folk isn't of the old people, it's of the people. So what you experience is valid and it is folklore.
Oh my God.
Can we have lunch now?
Yeah. Exactly, and I think it's very hard to avoid like the current climate that we're living in, and I think not to bring it back to like these harder to ask questions about where does folk sit in that. Because I remember one of the most interesting documentaries I watched over the last 2 years. I'll try and remember the name at some point, but they talked about how at the beginning of fascism in this country, the first place they went to was folk customs in different places because it held such a beautiful culture of labour and working class roots, and they knew of its power. So how do we kind of use folk in this way to kind of like bring the sense of belonging that a lot of people are looking for? Currently my boat is in Uxbridge and there's flags everywhere, very poorly put up flags, and I actually quite like the flag, but there's something about people trying to find identity in the flag, but us knowing that there's something deeper that's going on, and maybe is these folk practices.
Deep as what? Putting the flag up. There's a subtext.
Yeah, I think it's a yearning.
Yeah.
For this sense of belonging that Jen so eloquently has spoken about.
Yeah, and I suppose if other people tell you belong and these people don't belong, that's when it becomes a problem, doesn't it? You belong when it comes from above, from politicians. But I think it's not. We know that there's a kind of, there could be sort of a dodgy element to folk culture as well, because it excludes, if it excludes certain people from it. And I know that there's, in America especially, there's a lot of interest around Neolithic sites, and in Britain by the far right. They get involved. There's a book called Back to the Stone Age, which is about the far right's co-opting of Neolithic imagery and so on. Which is because one of the problems with the Neolithic is we know so little that anyone can take whatever they want from it. On the whole, though, it's not like that. But folk culture, I think, also there's a lot of controversy also about people blacking up and so on, and that always became a huge issue. So that became a culture war issue, which wasn't very helpful.
Yeah, and I think there's something that's very interesting, because for me, I guess my journey into folklore was actually through my own ancestry. So my family's from the Niger Delta, and seeing the folk customs there and seeing how it mirrored like things that are going on in Whitby and all the other places.
Bear and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and it was like that kind of like almost this oneness but multiplicity that can be held at the same time. I thought folk culture can do that in some ways. And I know your work, especially the work around immigration, is trying to create this more inclusive us, this more inclusive folk. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Oh my God, that's so big. Jen, you say something.
No.
You're very good at it.
You're the big artist on this stage.
Yeah, but you're a performing artist. We're both artists.
Just speak about your work, please.
Well, no, I have a very, very broad definition of folk. I did an exhibition called Folk Archive at Tate Britain in 2000 with my colleague Alan, and we did it again in 2004, a massive, expanded version, and it was about what we saw as vernacular and folk art, but it was like folk art made in, a bit like what Jen was talking about, made in cities, and then things in the countryside, and their relationship to each other. And it was interesting because I've never had such vicious press against me for putting things like that in an art gallery. I think the world has totally changed, and now that's almost all you see in art galleries, it feels like. But at that point in 2004, critics were absolutely horrified. They even had to look at this material. They didn't realise the value of it and the fact that it actually was inspiring artists. So this is not answering your question, but things change very quickly, actually. They can do. And people appreciate things very quickly. It sort of turns, and I'm not quite sure why, actually, why that happened in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I feel like this kind of folk revival is moving folk to a more inclusive space. And Jen, your album, which is absolutely amazing,
that I'm avoiding speaking about.
I know, I'm quite surprised. So Jen's album, just to put her in the middle of it, half the album is older songs that are collected. And then the other albums are newer songs influenced by the older songs, but bringing together this like more inclusive us when it comes to folk culture. So tell us about what was the journey for writing this album, who are the people that you spoke to, who inspired it, and how did you land on this thing of folk needing to be more inclusive?
It's called The Ballad of the Gatekeeper, and it's personal. So the first half is songs that it's poems that I haven't heard sung before, so they cover themes like Sam Laycock wrote a really, really nice poem. He's probably the cleverest Yorkshireman that ever lived, in that he moved to Lancashire by the age of 3. appreciate that mission. Well, it's Marsden, so it's Huddersfield, but we won't get into that. So he wrote this gorgeous poem called I've Turned Me Bitter Garden O'er, and he's enjoying his little parcel of land that he has at the back of his cottage. And that for me was like quite a lot of people in COVID were experiencing the outdoors in a whole new way. And these older songs, it's like, hey, look, we can kind of use the old songs to talk about what goes on now. I've done loads of stuff in Bangladesh about this. And then the second half, I thought, ooh, there's just some songs that don't quite cut it. I'm sorry, Martin Carthy. I'm sick of hearing the famous flower of serving men as, I mean, this is kind of quite a niche topic I'm going into now. Talk to me afterwards. The famous flower of serving men is always used as a kind of trans representative song in the folk tradition, and it's not really, doesn't go anywhere really for that. So then I wrote a song about how when some flowers have rich resource, like water lilies, they can bloom as male one day and female the next. And I thought, oh, isn't that nice? And I love the idea, like King Canute, when he tried to control the sea. You can't control nature. Nature is always and never the same. That's what Waldo Ralph Emerson said. Thank you. So I like this idea of, for me, I'm a massive control freak, and I like the fact that I can't control nature, and I am nature itself, so I need to like understand that as part of me. So this second half, I did like trans rights, I did, what are the other songs that I did, Daze, Seems Though You Love It So Much. The Ballad of the Gatekeeper was all about kind of challenging authority. Oh, I'm good at that. I really used to be that girl that stood on tables and got in older men's faces. But now I don't do that anymore. I just try and be eloquent on stage instead. And the album, it's interesting because I've been touring with Eliza Carthy for like 18 months, and that's been cool because at some stages in that tour, I was averaging like 3 or 4 emails a week from just random women who were getting in touch with me and going, what you're doing really speaks to me, and now I've decided to like do this in my own practice, or I've decided to start singing this. And that for me is just, that's it. That is absolutely it. You don't turn no money off it. But it's nice to think that we're building some kind of inclusive thing. Maybe the money will come, who knows. But another thing that I think is really important is like this community element. I think people can perform community because it's cool, and it's very easy to perform online as something that you ain't. And in real life, being real is very hard work because, you know, you've got to be vulnerable and all that kind of thing. You know, my mum still looks at me like, oh, have you cut your hair? And I'm like, yes. Only 14 years in this haircut, mother, thank you. But I think the erosion of community starts with land enclosures, and that goes all the way back to the Normans, you know, 1200s, whatever. And I think that's a thing that people don't really counter in their own lives. Like, I don't know much about land rights until I watched that. Anyone seen 3 Acres and a Cow? That show? Oh, wow. Well, good. So I've managed to convince Robin to work with me on it, and then we're going to take it. I want to take it to all the places that had the riots that are risk of like reform voters and all that kind of thing. We're Lithuanian, but my mum's really racist, so I'm just kind of like, that's interesting. At my auntie's funeral, she was like, all these Polish. And I was like, oh, right, yeah. We're on it. The Lithuanian must be, exempt from that. So I think it's as well like helping people to learn stuff they didn't learn at school. Again, with Peterloo, like you don't learn Peterloo at school. Peterloo 1819, all that. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And I was actually thinking, just to go on, because, you know, like a lot of people don't know about 3 Acres and a Cow. Could you just explain that concept? And then I think I'll come to you and ask you about commons as well, and more generally. Okay. Yeah. Oh, we can tag team that one.
3 Acres and a Cow is a show. It's like an hour and a half. He plays the ukulele in it, but don't hold it against him. And it has a lot of historical songs in it, some like proper old ones all the way down to modern ones. And it kind of starts like Norman times, and it just takes you through the history by the hand in a way that's very accessible. I'm going to put it on in Mid, where I'm from, and I'm going to get my mum to sit on front row. And if that, through her kind of composted filter, we'll see what goes in and what stays out.
Yes, and it's largely about this promise. You know, this promise to land and to not even self-sustainability, but like community sustainability. And I know that your work kind of starting to go towards this kind of like recreation of the commons. And I would say that your last piece, particularly in Trafalgar Square, felt like the beginnings of common culture coming back.
Well, maybe as a sort of takeover of that space, which is like I said, a very harsh space. There's no shade there. There's this kind of imperial buildings overlooking you, and it's usually used for protests, and we weren't using it as a protest, we were using it for something entirely different. But I am interested in common. ownership of like going back to sort of folk songs are commonly owned by us as our sort of monuments. I did a book and I called it, and there's a chapter called Stonehenge as a Mirror, because I think we all see ourselves in it somehow. Even though we're not entirely sure what it was used for, we have an idea, but everyone has their own version of it, and it's also about the relationships of the country as well, to the nation. So it's these things are very helpful. Or the poem Jerusalem, when it's sung, that can be sung by people on the left, on the right, everyone in between, and you feel connected to it. So those artworks, if you include Stonehenge as an artwork, are so important to have.
They are desperately important, and especially so my interest into going into slightly more mystical side of things started with this recognition that in order to understand the climate crisis, you kind of have to go back to the enclosures and that deep-seated trauma that we have in this country of feeling like we don't belong to place anymore. You know, we're starting to see it rise up in ways that we can't ignore it any longer.
I think most of the problems in Britain stem from land ownership, like who owns it.
Yeah.
From the high street to countryside. You know, it sort of ruins people's lives in cities as well, because they can't afford to live anywhere, and shops can't open because it's too expensive. So it's the
and even
ownership
access of what you do. I remember I grew up in a council estate partly, and the most iconic sign is no ball games.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't even play ball games in your own garden. You know, so it's like kind of like the squashing. And I think that's why pilgrimage is so magical, especially my journey with pilgrimage has been, how do I find belonging through the land by feeling like I have the right to walk it? You know, and it's so powerful in going through that process. Have you had any transformative moments like that with folk traditions?
I've had some, yes, even on TV when you see things, some people singing on television. I've had a few at stone circles, which I know isn't folk necessarily, but I went to I've had two actually, the Roll-Right Stones. I was there one evening, and it was a warm evening. The sun was setting, and I was leaving with my partner. And then all these cars turned up and just drove onto the site. And it was an astronomical society. They were looking at the stars, and I ended up looking at Saturn, more or less within a stone circle, which I felt, well, that was probably what they used to do thousands of years ago, look at the stars and make up stories and try and identify them or get knowledge from them. Yeah. And I felt totally connected there. So that was quite amazing, actually, to have that happen.
Yeah, and Jen, do you have a moment that kind of like, apart from working at B&M?
There's a retail park in Bolton. And I always used to go there and just park up, same spot all the time. And I'd just sit there and be like, I can just take weight off there. It's nice. And I know, stone circles. I just, oh God, have it, more for you. I'm over it. I'm all about tarmac and concrete, me. And I know it's pathetic, but that's what it is. I feel safe there. They're the places I used to go. Walking around Bury Market the same route as me nan and me mum will wring me neck if I don't do same route, exactly the same route. So it's just these little cultural rhythms I've got running inside me that you're now bringing out of me.
But I love that. It's like a full circle moment, that this inclusion that folk is about people and how we interact with land and space all around us. And those two experiences were still transformative and still kind of
keeping
based
my
in
one.
it.
I know you don't like it.
Yeah.
I've got another one as well. I'm not going to tell you though.
Saturn.
But
What about TK Maxx?
I made a film. I do all that as well.
All right.
I made a film with a group of young people, and they were basically, like I am more or less, as a white middle-aged guy, I'm still kind of a bit scared what to do when I'm in the countryside. I don't know where to go, what's allowed, and I'm sure this is a big deal here, isn't this, in this room. And these young people, none of them, it's like 30 young people, only one of them had left London. And she said, I went to the countryside. I said, where did you go? She said, I went to Oxford. And even then she felt it wasn't for her. Yeah. So she hadn't been to the countryside. Because you don't know what to do, really. Yeah. I don't.
I grew up in Tottenham. So when I say I woke up one morning when I moved to Lincolnshire and looked outside and saw a cow and I was scared.
Yeah, quite right.
But then in George Orwell's Keep the Aspidistra Flying, they nip out to the country to go and have a roll around in grass and then come back because his landlady won't let him have visitors. And I think that's quite a freeing thing. I always think, not that I'm after roll arounds in grass, but I think it's just a nice way to use the countryside. Like you have your own private moments there and it feels bucolic and then you get back to life. It's like a little holiday.
Well, as well was big parties happening in the countryside, didn't they? They didn't happen in cities. They happened in the countryside.
Oh, then free parties in Goit Valley.
Oh,
They were good, yeah.
They still happen. Don't they?
Oh, and on that note, we actually should open up to audience questions. I don't want to be greedy. Oh, wow. Okay. Josh, do we have an extra mic? Okay. I will be the runner.
I feel like such a teacher's pet. I just want to acknowledge how grateful I am for the reverence that you both put forth to us today, particularly around the built environment. I was on a call with Guy and Daze yesterday talking about how important it feels to be contemplative within the carceral geographies of the city, right? That there's a home here for us too, and that there are these places where we find reprieve and relief. So much of Black vernacular culture is extracted from a community. But that vernacular culture has an economy. It's sustaining a community, and then it becomes a commodity. The artists get taken out of that community and put behind the white walls of an institution, and then that community is deracinated, right? So what have your practices as a bard and as an artist taught you about how we preserve without calcifying, how we include without, and still revere, right? Still honor the origins?
Do not be like Cecil J. Sharp.
I knew the Cecil Sharp dig would come out at one point.
Oh, God. No, I'm over it. I am over it. I'm over it. I've been saying it for 8 years. No one's been listening, so I'll just shut up now. But I think you can put a bit of yourself into the collecting, but you can't put your views onto the collecting. That's to collect everything, even if you're not into it. You have to give like a wide, broad swathe of it, because you don't know who you're collecting for, are you? You can't know everyone that's ever lived. So you need to be objective and just collect all the best you can and provide as much context as possible. There's people still living that know more than you about the stuff that you're looking at. So get their take on it, even if it's just a quick 15 minutes. Because I was thinking about it like trying to preserve a message over like 200 years. Oh my God, that's hard work. So I try and do a bit of social history. Like Ivan Fryman was an amazing singer and miner from, I think he worked at Bradford Pit, but Bradford in Manchester, thank you very much, and Agecroft Colliery. And then he would write little bits of info before the songs, and I think that's very important, to just have a bit of, you just need a bit of a grip on it to be able to understand it, because your brain is great in this context, in 2025, in this room, and how you interpret stuff is your funky filter, whatever you're doing, but you just need a bit of context from before, and then before that, just to know. I imagine it like a rope that's, stay with me, a rope that's under sand, and you just keep yanking rope and seeing how far it goes back, you know, and just keep yanking. There you go.
Keep yanking.
Keep yanking, baby.
Don't mispronounce that. I think it's how you show the work and what's around it and the context, and right, it's how you talk about it. And you're not an expert, but you love it. And I think you show your love for something, and then people will appreciate that. And hopefully, you're just pointing at things, basically. That's what I was doing when I did that collection of folk and vernacular art. And we're mixing it all up as well. We weren't experts, and we never said we were. We weren't curators. We were sort of selecting, but in a very haphazard way. And that's, I think, a good way of doing it, not to assume you know more than anyone else. A bit of humility, I suppose, is the word. But be a lover of it.
Thank you so much for, I'm tongue-tied. It's brilliant. Thank you both so much. This is more, I don't know your work, so this is more a question for you, Jeremy, about the banners, because you were talking about different kinds of work, and I just feel the banners, where do they sit in relationship, which does relate to you, Jennifer, to politics, marching, pilgrimage, walking, folk.
And we both love Ed.
Ed Hall.
I've worked
for 25 years with Britain's sort of greatest banner maker, living banner maker, who's made thousands of banners.
For the Tall Puddle.
Tall Puddle, trade unions, Palestinian causes, CND, Stop the War. He's done everything. He's like the Ken Loach of banner making.
Yeah.
And a very sweet man as well. He's kind of a miraculous human being. And so I've worked with him a lot. Because I think, sometimes you need something beautiful when the cause itself, there's a lot of unpleasantness or ugliness almost. Something really horrible, and you honour something by making something beautiful, and it's something you literally rally around and you can stand under and say, this is what I believe in. So, they have a great use. And there's just something about, when you go to demos, looking at all the placards and things that people make, working out who they are, where they're from, what they believe in. And the banner is the most honourable, sort of aesthetically pleasing version of that, I would say. And it brings sort of something to a demo, and just a text as well. It's so plain when you can put on a banner, and it says everything really. Sums up everything you're looking at. It's summed up in a sentence or a few words. But the thing about Ed is it's not just the banners he makes; it's the person he is as well. He's kind of miraculous person.
Yeah, I love that because my background is in environmental activism, actually grassroots activism, so very much pilgrimage, strangely enough, is very similar to protest. Whether it's like the sense of community, that shared purpose, the intention, it's like you can start to see the mirroring.
He's walking.
Lots of walking.
From A to B.
Yeah, and also with the banners is particularly interesting because I have like a slight interest in craft, and the idea of like pouring out your grief and your love into these like physical manifestations of your message is so powerful. And for me, as someone who's made banners before as well, it's like it is such a healing process that it's almost like going on an emotional pilgrimage.
And the care you take to make them, and the fact that they're hand stitched and they're beautifully made, just shows how much you care for the cause as well, I think.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of connection.
Jen, do you want to add anything?
I love Ed Hall.
Yeah.
He's like my surrogate granddad. Him and Caroline are just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the best. I think as well with banners, like because I've made some with Ed, and you don't realise it, but you've got your own font. Like when you like draw and stuff and you like write and that, and you can see yourself all in it. But then it harks to like the South Asian like Kantha tradition as well, which is like all the running stitches and stuff. It's somatically charged with your personality, darling.
And we'll take one more question, and we've seen very eager hand. Guy, thank you so much. Glamorous assistant Guy.
Thank you. First of all, no disrespect to Yorkshire, but it is, thank you for a little flicker of Lancashire pride, red roses. I just wondered what part you think comedy and lightheartedness plays in sort of folk revival and that kind of thing.
You need it.
You absolutely need it.
You really need it.
You can take it so seriously, and when people take things super seriously, then they kind of kill it, I would say.
Absolutely.
With music and with performance.
But in the Lancashire dialect stuff that I sing, I always try, and I don't do any, like, I don't do no beheadings, no infanticide, no murders, no nothing like that. I do more like, he wouldn't go upstairs with her, so she chucks him downstairs. Or, like, there's a really good song by Richard Rowan Bealey, Rochdale dialect, and I'll do you a verse of it just so you can understand like the context of it. But it's called "There's No Chap Should Ever Lose Pluck," and it's just about don't get down. But it's I'll try to be merry, I will. I'll make up me mind on today. Though care is a rum un to kill, I'll fight but I'll have him away. I'll fight but I'll have him away. You know, it's a bit like, right, all right, this could go bad, but do you know what? I'm going to keep my chin up and it'll all be right. It is that. It's just berate, isn't it? That's what it is. And that is Yorkshire and Lancashire, so there you go.
And thank you so much. On that note, I actually do think we should wrap up. Yes, because there's lunch and it's hot, and I've been told to make sure everyone gets there on time. But thank you so much, Jeremy.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jen. This has been
Cheers.
absolutely brilliant.
Don't stop your journey here. Unlock more potential with this recommended content.